Hi! First of all, warm welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to try to help you decide which kit lens to get for your first Fuji camera. Should you go for the 18-55 f2.8 to f4 zoom lens, or should you get the 16-80mm f4 zoom lens? So what we're going to do in this video, first of all we look at the size differences of the lenses. As you can see, the 16-80 is a little bit bigger than the 18-55. If you take the lens hood off, that is the size difference. In terms of weight, 16-80 is 475 grams and the 18-55 is 334 grams. And when you zoom out, that is the size difference there.
Starting with the 16-80 lens. There are no actual buttons or switches on the lens itself. The aperture ring clicks when you turn it and it ranges from f4 to f22. The zoom ring itself has a decent resistance, just perfect, and the focus ring itself works flawlessly as well. Looking at the 18-55 here, the aperture ring's also clicking, but it doesn't have any written numbers on it, so just by looking at the lens you can't tell which aperture you're using, and it also doesn't have any hard stops, so it just goes to infinity. It's not really a big deal for me because I always check the aperture settings in the camera screen itself. There are two buttons or switches on the 18-55 lens. One of them is the optical image stabilization, which is, by the way, on the 16-80 lens by default is always on, and you have an option to turn it off on the 18-55. It is especially important when you're shooting videos, and it will give you more options. So for example, if you're looking to have a shaky footage, the second switch on the lens turns the aperture between manual and automatic. In terms of weather sealing, the 16-80mm lens is weather sealed. The 18-55 isn't. But ideally you don't really want to shoot in the rain and snow, but sometimes you just get caught with the rain, so it's definitely handy to have weather sealing in the lens, so that's a bonus.
Lens caps are pretty much the same, they work the same. You can push them from the middle or on the side and you lift them. The filter size for the 16-80 is 72mm. Meanwhile the 18-55 has a 58mm filter size. What we're going to do in this video, first we're going to start off by testing the autofocus and the closest focus distance for both lenses, and we'll look at those beautiful bokehs they can both produce.
We're starting off with the 16-80mm lens, and this is the closest focusing distance at 80mm on the X-T3 versus the 18-55 lens at 55mm. And as you can see, you can't really get this object as close. Both of these were recorded at 24 frames per second f4. Now let's test the continuous autofocus while recording a video, and these are my settings in the camera, by the way. Tracking sensitivity at 2 and autofocus speed at 0. So we are focusing close first and then a bit further away at the doggy and back close again. And here's what the camera sees. It's smooth. This is the 16-80mm lens. Now we're going to move on to check the lens stabilization, and we're going to do this by putting them on the Fuji X-T3, which doesn't have IBIS. The 16-80mm lens has a 6-stop, and meanwhile the 18-55 lens has a 4-stop optical image stabilization, so we should be able to see the difference. Back. So let's check out the image quality. The first image here is going to be shot at 16mm closest focusing distance, and there's a bit of bokeh. And the second picture, this one here, is shot at 18mm at f2.8. And again, we go to closest focusing distance on the 16-80 first. It's really close. Look at that bokeh, it's beautiful. Now we're going to switch to 18-50 and check this out. It looks amazing. Both of them are amazing. The longer focal range, the closer focusing distance, and the wider ceiling are all advantages of the 16-80mm lens. In terms of autofocus, stabilization, and image quality, they were very similar. I also find two major advantages of the smaller lens, namely the f2.8 aperture at 18mm certainly beats the f4 aperture at 16mm. And as you see in this video, when you zoom in with the 16-80mm lens, it always loses focus. It certainly is a nice feature to have, and it can spice up your videos when it works well. And here's the 18-55, just look at that, it doesn't lose focus, it just stays sharp the whole way, zoom back and forward. So that is a beautiful feature. In summary, both of these lenses are amazing. They produce superb image quality, great autofocus, and good lens stabilization. I personally prefer the 18-55, but you get either of these lenses, you won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for watching, see you in the next one, and consider subscribing please.